My best experiences being there and learning from my fellow students because all of them were accomplished. How keen learners they were, even at the age of 40 above. Dearth for knowledge. Unfortunately, what I see these days with this generation, somebody needs to go and tell them there's a difference between information and knowledge. Knowing that this is a movie coming tomorrow, it's an information, it's not knowledge.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of GIBS IRE Talks podcast, powered by GIBS Business School, where innovation meets inspiration. It is said that human capital is what brings an organization its sustained competitive advantage. But how do we build that competitive advantage? How do we make sure our employees are happy, are engaged, and are satisfied with their work? So let's hear it from none other than Mr. Sophie Zahoor, who's the CEO of HumanCap. So join me in welcoming our guest for today, Mr. Sophie Zahoor, and let's learn from him what is his mantra in keeping his employees happy, satisfied, and well engaged. Hello, Mr. Sophie, and thank you so much for agreeing to be with us for this IRE Talks podcast. So to begin with, my first and a very obvious question to you would be if you could share with us something about your experiences with the Wharton School of Business.
Yeah, it was a brilliant time up there. We were about 42 students in the classroom coming from all very large organizations. The criteria to get into that class was you had to have 25 years of experience and you had to work in an international environment. So this was a bunch of smart 42 people coming from very large organizations across the industries: finance, insurance, technology, manufacturing. So I think the greatest experience out of that was the cohort itself.
Yeah.
Right. So we had a great opportunity to have a professor like Peter Capelli, Dr. Harjeet Singh, Peter Capelli, but I think a lot of learning came through this cohort. And I think it was one of my best experiences being there and learning from my fellow students because all of them were accomplished. So, and I realized there that how keen learners they were, even at the age of 40 above, most of them were 40 and above. The level of dearth for knowledge, unfortunately, what I see these days, this generation, somebody needs to go and tell them there's a difference between information and knowledge.
Yeah.
So, knowing that this is a movie coming tomorrow, it's an information, it's not knowledge. But I think working with this bunch of 42 people, that was the magic up there.
Yeah, probably the kind of maturity that they would have brought as a learner,
the experiences they brought from different industries.
Yeah.
It's a one problem. How would you solve it, and how would I solve it?
Yeah.
And I always thought in my life that probably this is the best way to solve this problem. End of the day, we were looking at how they had solved those business challenges at their work. So it was the perspectives coming from different people, tremendous diversity. Unfortunately, this diversity word is very is confused. You know, it's not about gender.
Yeah.
It's about different thought process.
Agreed.
How would a white solve a problem, and how would a academician solve a problem, and how would a technical guy would solve? So I think we had this 42 bunch of people coming from different diverse background. That was eye-opening. I had never in my life had an experience to be in a classroom with that set of diverse people, gender diversity, organization diversity, industry diversity. Everybody came with a different way of looking at things and looking at the perspectives of things and how to come around and solve those problems.
So probably earlier in the day we were discussing about a teacher being a co-learner or creating that co-learning space. So I think you've had that co-learning space and tremendous amount of learning.
Absolutely. I mean, let me tell you, very late realization, but this is a realization that the learning comes in three different formats. So 33% of your learning comes from your resources. The resource could be your teacher, professor, library, internet.
Yeah.
It's just 33%. You feel that, oh, you've gone to classroom, you've spoken to professor, you've gone to the Google, you have seen the YouTube, you know everything. I'm sorry, it's just 33%. The next 33% comes from the cohort,
From the, yeah.
and the last 33% comes from the reflections. So we shortchange things. So I think if we understand this, and as a teacher or professor, and this is what was unique about this, although Peter is one of the best HR professors in the world ever in the history, but he always behaved like a moderator. He was he was a co-learner.
Great, great, great. So, I would like to ask you another question, and I don't know how appropriate that question is, but then what are the most intriguing ways in which the education in US is different from the education that we have here in India? So, I mentioned it before itself. I don't know if it's appropriate. There may be multiple ways, but then the most intriguing ways that you think it is different.
I think no one great thing which I see is there. Nobody is judging you there. Nobody judges you, who you are, where you come from, what level of knowledge and what level you come. So there's nobody to judge. So you're fearless, actually. That's one thing. And the second most important thing is, which I have experienced there, and I'm not trying to demean our education. We also have a great education system in the world. But I think some of the pieces which are really loud there, one is that nobody is judging. People are fearless. And most important thing is that there's a lot of focus on applied side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, whatever you're taught, unless you don't have an applied mechanics, you don't have a role play, you don't have a case study, so the registration doesn't happen.
Yeah, agree.
So I think that's one important piece which, and I'm seeing now a lot of change. I work very closely with a lot of universities in India. I look at how they do as a learner. I see some changes happening here, but there it's the way of life in the university.
Yeah, agree. So probably at least in our management education, we've been emphasizing a lot on case-based education and experiential learning. So I think somewhere or the other, we are also getting closer to making those meaningful changes, probably. Yeah. So could you also share with us your experiences of starting Quark Software INC, how you've worked with Quark Software?
Okay, so this is very interesting. I actually come from a technology background, so but I could never find peace in that, writing a software code. So I always thought I'm lost somewhere, and having that realization that I have lost somewhere, that I was not meant to be in the technology side and write software code, I realized maybe I'm good with people's skills. So I got into HR from a computer science background and started learning HR. And suddenly this Quark happened. And Quark was at the cusp of moving the entire, all the products offload to India. So basically, US was expensive, Europe was expensive. Quark was looking at how do we make sure we take this technology and get it built elsewhere. This is early 2000 when a lot of companies were looking at India. What was actually happening? This is a very interesting question. This reminds me of that 2002 when this is the time when a lot of tech companies in the world were looking at moving all the low-end work to India, right? Cost arbitration, right? It was cost.
Correct.
So because we will do this work at lesser money,
exactly.
So a lot of this low-end work, whether it is testing or whether it is configuration management, whether it is documentation, whether it is
customer
maintenance releases, a lot of this was happening to India. And this is what happened in Quark. When I joined them, 90% of the core engineering was happening the rest of the world, and India was doing only 10%.
Oh, okay.
And within 15 years, 10, 15 years, we changed the game.
Wow.
And we made sure that 95% of the core engineering was happening in India and 5% was happening the rest of the world.
Oh.
So that transformation we have seen, how we made sure that we brought the organization to the level where we would start going in a very, very complex engineering product development. And we made it. And then in fact, one of the very flagship product called Quark Express 6 was one of the biggest success of Quark history, and Quark 6 was done out of India, and I have seen it from the scratch, right from where we started. And then, so I think it's been a brilliant experience. We have taken a lot of brave decisions there, and we proved to the rest of the world, don't come to India for cost saving.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have a problem to solve, if you have a, a complex situation to solve,
Then come to us.
then come to India. And then it was not at Cork, it was happening around the world. But I think I've seen it myself, from the maintenance releases to the core product engineering.
Yeah. So that transition.
For me, this is a hell of a life which I have seen.
Yeah.
And how they started looking India as a tech place, they get great solvers.
And I think now most of the biggest names, we have Indians heading so many operations.
Yeah.
So I think it's out there already.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. So you were just mentioning about more into HR now. So from software, from technology, the experience that you shared with Quark, and now that you've all HR operations is what you probably are focusing on. So could you share with us the challenges that you've faced with managing people as a resource? I mean, what are the typical challenges that you think that you've faced?
I think this is not specific to me. I mean, this is in general what we see. Few challenges. There are a bunch of challenges, but I think some of the challenges, which is, people were not focusing on building a strong base. Getting into fundamentals. And so the moment a student comes from an organization, he feels that he's done it. He doesn't need to learn and unlearn and relearn. So building that organization of a learning organization, where everybody at all levels has to make sure that they have to keep learning, and so I think that was one of the challenges which I had seen. But then until we realized, we made it sure that why learning is it, because the world was changing very fast. So that was one thing. And second challenge was in India is what short changes. Basically, attrition was a very big challenge. Especially in tech center, people will move very quickly for small jumps. So, but eventually, I realized that this stops people. It's not the money. It also took us some time to solve that. We realized, how do we make sure that we retain our top talent and they don't leave us, because that's very important. So we started looking at, maybe we have to find a different way of solving. So we started giving greenfield projects to those people, right? And then there were a large portion of people who were the mid performers. So what do we do for them? Okay, they need to learn. They need to move to the next level. Create a brilliant career progression plan for every employee in an organization, and they move forward. But for your top people, key talent, you have to make sure that they are on they're on greenfield projects, new projects, solving new projects. So I think that's a couple of challenges which I have seen, but we've been able to manage it. And so far, I won't say that we have solved everything, but to a large extent, and for me, HR, although I come from a technology background and then later got into HR sciences, it's a lot of emotional intelligence you bring into the organization, and make people understand what they are trying to do. Sometimes they don't even know it. Yeah. I'll give an example, if that makes sense. I had a very young gentleman sitting on my reception in the dev center. So his name is Manas Ranjan. So I would walk on the floor, meet people. Hey, how's things going on? What's up? What's new? So everybody will give the story. So floor walks was something which I always loved. So I would walk up to reception and I'll tell him, hey Manas, how are you doing? How are you doing well? He said, yes, I'm doing very well. I said, so how has been your last 6 months, 1 year? Sir, I've saved about 20% on the cost on the stationery. Because he was managing the stationery across. It's a big budget for stationery. I said, how did you manage saving of 25% on the stationery? He said, I would, whenever people will come for a pen, I will not give them a pen, I'll give them a refill. Corporates don't
bother.
Yeah, they said, we have notebooks of this size. I realized people leave half the page like this.
Correct.
I got a smaller notebooks. So instead of big notebooks, because they will only write that much,
Yeah.
content there. I said, all right, what else you did? Then he said, I started sending light reminders to people on, how to save on electricity. He was doing that. He was a very smart chap. Keep in mind, he was a receptionist. I said, good job, you've done a great work, but let me tell you what you have done in last 1 year. Honestly, you didn't even know it. And he was like, I said, in last 1 year, all the European calls which landed onto your desk. So people will call from different countries for a product installation, and
Any
some of them
queries?
would be sales calls. There'll be inquiries. So when Europe was not up, because Europe will up slightly 5 hours late,
Later.
then right.
Yeah.
So there were people who would just an hour or half an hour or 45 minutes before give a call. The call will not be picked up from there. The call will be rerouted to India. It will go to Manas.
And he was picking up
He would pick up the call with very little English. He'll make a note, name, email, phone, and he'll make a nice report and make it, this is for Europe, this is for Japan, or this is for, so he'll make a very nice note. I said, in the European Union, what you have been doing every week and sending it to sales reps, that effort has gained us $5 million worth revenues
Wow.
every year. And you know what, Palvi? He had no clue.
My God.
He had no clue what he had done. So, when you in an organization, when you are going to people and talking, what are the impact they are making in an organization?
Yeah.
We feel many times short of words.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful that you acknowledged and let him know
That's what
that
people
this
need.
contribution is done.
That's what you need to be truly acknowledging people what they're doing.
Yeah.
So we fail at this. The management several times fails at it because you don't want to get into details.
Correct.
The moment you get into details, see that side and share it with the people, they
Feel
really-
valued,
they
feel
appreciate
happy. Yeah. Yeah.
He realized that he's going to do a much better job. She's doing very well. He moved on. He started his own pharma company.
All right.
Very well. He was a receptionist.
My God. Wow. And a beautiful story. A beautiful story of a receptionist. Huh? Yeah. So, in fact, I was going to ask you my next question, and in some way, you've already answered that as well. How do you make sure that your employees are engaged, they're satisfied, they're happy with their jobs? And I think one bit of it you shared with the story about Manas. So, are there any other more, ways that you ensure your people are satisfied and engaged at their work?
I think they need to see in an organization, you need to show them in an organization beyond the paycheck they are in the company. You need to show them the value they are bringing to the organization. I think that's very, very important. And besides that, I have always realized, and this has worked for me, it isn't written in any management books. I will do a lot of efforts to meet people outside work because they will be different people when you meet outside work. So we'll create lots of competitive sports over the weekends outside with the employees and their families. Multiple. So what will happen? There's a person who would have never spoken to me for 10 years in the company, but if he's on my football team, playing on a league, so you find them people very different in the different format. So if you're not able to break the ice in one format, create a different format where you open up people, and that's where the reception and agreements and trust starts building it up. I think trust building is very important for people, and there a lot of focus is on at the leadership level about building the trust in the organization and making sure everybody is valued in the company and whichever capacity they are.
Yeah. So automatically brings that happiness and joy in the work that they do.
It just brings joy and
Yeah.
happiness in the work.
Agree. So could you also share with us, you've been the member of the Board of Studies and Board of Governance with Chandigarh University. So could you share with us, any of your best practices, or how do you strive for excellence when it comes to, universities or institutions like
Yeah,
ours?
sure. I've been on the board of many universities. Chandigarh University is one of the university. I've been on a board with NIT Delhi, Punjab University, Chitkara University, many universities. So I think they started very small about 20 years back. My job in the entire last 20 years was to help them understand how to solve problems smartly. That's what the journey has been with me.
Yeah.
I mean, you solving this problem? No, because every second person in the country is solving this problem in a different way. You don't need to solve the problem. There's a different way of looking at solving this problem and how you're up in the game. So I think focus on the pedigree, which is and to be very honest, I remember once with the board telling them, hey, you know what? Uh, what's your budget on your buildings and construction? This is the budget. So huge budget. Uh, I said, okay, all you need to move 5% out of this budget and move into the core business, core people. Pay more people,
Yeah.
hire more, better faculty,
Yeah.
build up great labs, and have this industry-centered education. It is the number one private university in the country today, and have, in some small ways, contributed into their success what they are today. I'm very happy the kind of progress they have made today. 60,000 students in one campus today.
That's amazing. Very good number. Yeah. So, could you also share with us how can any institution ensure that they deliver world-class education to the learners today? We know that times are changing. There is so much of dynamism also in the way education is being imparted. So, could you share with us how can we bring world-class education?
See, I think there are two, three things. What you have to make sure that your entire education is centered around the industry needs.
Yeah.
So you cannot be living in an isolation and creating something while the academia is not, in hand. So there are many ways. A lot of universities are doing a lot of adjunct faculties, sessions, and so on and so forth. Some bear results, some don't bear results, but it's a continuous process of continuous thinking. How do we engage the industry and how do we have industry-centered education? So that's one. I'm a very big proponent of preaching and professing this, that you continuously have to keep checking yourself. Are you in line or you're off the line? So imagine you are on the two railway lines. One railway line may take you probably somewhere, but one railway line, you need to know which lane. So I think you have to be continuously doing check with, are you in line with the industry expectations, and invest in your core business, which is bring very passionate professors and teachers into you. Because that's a core thing.
Yeah, yeah,
You
agree.
you can compromise on infra, a big building, a nice sofa, but if you bring a great professor and great resource to an organization, that's a very, very huge thing. I think a lot of these people have done this, and I mean, for some reasons they listen to me. So I I think I feel very humbled with this, that my association with these 3-4 universities has, they've fairly done well, and I have myself been a beneficiary of the whole process in terms of being more wiser, learning from when people come together.
Agree.
That's where the power of collective intelligence comes. So I think so I'm more wiser in terms of after working with those people. Not that I have given something to them. I'm more of a beneficiary to them.
Yeah, that's great. That's a wonderful way of looking at it, I would say. So, in fact, most of the institutions today who are offering different kinds of courses, the whole idea is probably to make them employable, to make the students employable. So, could you share with us, with your experiences with so many universities that you've had, any recommendations or suggestions that you have with you? How can we make them better skilled so that they are, better employable, given the current industry trends? What kind of skills do you think we need to impart to them so that they can become much
See,
better
there is
employable?
one suggestion which I always make, Palvi, is that you are very late when you're sending the students in your fourth semester for internship.
Yeah, yeah.
So work with an industry, bring this concept of early adoption in your university. So the student should be able to go in maybe do all third and fourth semester in the industry, or break the rule.
Yeah.
Break the rule. Go just not 2 months, 3 months, the entire year. A lot of universities around the world do. I mean, once they come back from that 6 months or 1 year, they are different people.
Correct.
So I think it's again, how do you want to, solve this? And that's one. Second thing is that I see a lot of times, I mean, I teach in many universities. When I have to make a 1 hour of session there, I probably spend about 30 hours in preparing a 1 hour of session.
Agree.
So I think a resource person, a professor or a teacher or a moderator has to do a lot of homework before they land into the classrooms.
Agree.
And this generation is when you and I came from the school, who listened all variety of things, a professor and teacher. Today, if they don't find interest,
They
they
would
lose the interest. And I remember in one of the universities in Punjab University, I was sitting in a board meeting, and one of the professors said, "Sir, I need some of your advice." I said, "What advice do you need?" He said, "When I enter into classroom, people are not attentive, students are not attentive. They don't listen, they are in the phone, they are here, they don't have any, they have a major issue with the attention.
Fan of
They are,
students.
yeah, attention deficit." I heard it because this is a normal run of the mill, people would say
Yeah.
this. My answer to this is slightly different. You didn't prepare yourself.
Correct.
I said, okay, this is Professor X. When he goes to classroom, class is 110% filled. When Y goes, it's probably 50% filled, and that 50% is also disengaged. The difference is that when you are prepared, they are attentive.
They're attentive and they know that you're prepared.
They are prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are very brutal in giving you the feedback. They are giving you the feedback. I'm not interested in what you're teaching me. I said, now if you go and try this, you prepare your classroom, put in a number of hours. A lot of us land into the classroom without a preparation. Fortunately, unfortunately, this generation is very brutal in giving you the feedback.
Correct. And they're way ahead of their times. They have everything available with them, all information on the phone. So I think unless you bring that difference to the class, you would
You
not
need to
find
bring-
that
yeah,
attention.
Yeah, you need to bring in the class, and then you need to make sure that how the second another piece is how do you make sure that how you make this cohort interact. I was talking about the 33% comes from the cohort.
Cohort, yeah.
So that's what I've seen in US. How a teacher or a professor makes sure that all the 30-40 students in the classroom bring something unique in a specific perspective.
Yeah.
That's where the learning happened.
That's what. So we utilize the different skill sets and knowledge and experiences that people bring with themselves.
Yeah,
to the
you need to
class.
understand that bunch of 40 people is a cohort. Everybody has experience because everybody is exposed to gigs of data every day. But how do I make sure that I get the best answer or second to best answer to the to your students and see then when all of this comes together, then how do you simulate it
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's what
bring the learnings out of there?
Yeah, agree. So now that we've talked a lot about education and student-centric learning, could you also share with us your experience as a CEO of Human Cap Inc?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was a global CHRO in Cork, and then I decided that went in US and did my work with water, and then I realized I want to play a different game now. I just didn't want to get stuck with. So I started this company, Human Cap. It's a CHRO services company. So when I was in Cork, I was only limited to dispense my knowledge to only one company because I was contract bound. So I moved out, started this company. I'm doing the same thing what I was doing with Quark with about 3 dozen companies. So I work as an advisor, interim or fractional CHRO with multiple companies. And this allows me to work with different set of people, all the way age groups. There are big companies, there are mid-sized companies, there are startups, there are seed-funded companies, there are angel invested companies. So all variety of people.
Wow.
And this is how I work with them, and it's exciting. I'm learning every single day, solving a problem slightly different. And then if you work with a diverse set of people, a lot of diverse knowledge starts hitting you back. So it is brilliant, and we've been very successful in helping organizations to move. I mean, the core thing is that if there's an organization there at an X revenue, how can we take them to 5X? So how can we build the process and practices and the technology to lay down that architecture for them for the growth? So for me, it's a great learning, and we see things moving, things making progress. That's a big tick for me personally, but at the same time, very satisfying. End of the day, because when you're starting competing to yourself, you make a little bit more effort.
Correct.
So
Correct. And probably the experience with one of the organizations, you never know how it may help in the decision making elsewhere
100%.
because of the diversity that
100,
different organizations bring.
100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So
agree, agree.
a lot of cross learn happen here, and then you enable people. I think in the last 4 years, my role has been enabling organizations, enabling universities, enabling startups, and end of the day, you are yourself a beneficiary.
Agree. And then that's the whole point or the whole crux of human capital. And I think you've been emphasizing on human resource and human capital. So I think that's the whole crux of it,
Absolutely.
enabling people and enabling individuals. So this brings me to the last question. If you could share with our viewers some of the best practices, in your opinion, what are the best practices that any sort of industry, any sort of company could implement in terms of HR, in terms of managing the human resources? So if you could share a few best practices.
Sure. See, look, I mean, this is my own experience, Uh, I always focused on will. If I look for a person who's with a strong will, skill is trainable. So focus on will. Skill is trainable, and the example is very simple. If you look at how when both Sachin Tendulkar and Vinod Kambli came from the same club, same coach, Vinod Kambli uh, had better shots. He was more stylish than Sachin Tendulkar. His strike rate was better. He hit more hundreds than Sachin. So his concentrate in all the technical aspects, Vinod Kambli was way, way more better than Sachin Tendulkar, which means he was very highly skilled. But he lost the game somewhere in between. It was a match between West Indies and India, and a Courtney Ambrose threw a ball. That was end of his career. But then you see how Sachin, he brought his his way of looking at things is. I find I am really a big fan of him. Not just the cricket, but how he was when he was at the peak, and how he managed when he was at the below. So I remember in one of the times when he was not doing very well in terms of his runs and scores. So there were lots of questions around it. You know what he did? He went back to the same Wankhede Stadium, did exactly the same thing what he did 20 years before. Started at 3 in the morning, cleaned the field, did the same practice, came back to the same relearning process, and he came back, and he was even more stronger. So will and skill is something else. So invest in will. Skill is trainable. So I always tell uh, HR leaders or CEOs of the company, uh, look for will, and also at the same time focus on your human engineering skills, because a lot this AI is going to change a lot of stuff. But how do you make sure that you focus on people who bring that soft skills, whether it is empathy, good listening, problem solving, working in teams. So I think these are the future skills. Everything else will be looked after by AI now. So I think if you focus on these things, especially this, soft skill side, the empathy, handling ambiguity.
Yeah.
We haven't taught people how to run
Deal with
ambiguity.
ambiguity,
Yeah. So focus now for organizations, for institutions. Take a lot of interest and focus on this will side.
Yeah.
Probably there could be another podcast on about how do we work on that, but I think that's a message that's my 2 cents in terms of my distilled experience, if I had put forward here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So probably if we can sum it up, maybe focus on the human part of it, because like you just mentioned, a lot of work can be done by AI itself. So
Right.
probably focus on those human aspects, because
Yeah,
that's what we're good at.
human engineering aspects, and that's a future skill. That's a future
Yeah,
skill.
yeah. So thank you so much. But before we sum up, if you have any experiences that you can share with our viewers with today's BOG meeting, the yesterday and today's session that we
I
had.
think last 2 days has been wonderful experience. Probably the kind of galaxy of people from diverse backgrounds you guys brought together. Uh, the outcome of these 2 days board of governors is visible to you. It came only because a lot of people from diverse background, and we were able to bring this power of collective intelligence, right? And and at the same time, I see a lot of. So that's one side, but another side is that the management, the faculty, the founders of this, I think I see they have a genuine interest at heart. You know, that there was something which was very touching for me. They have genuine interest at heart to do things much better way, much, you know, a better way, and invest in the education. So I think that was one very unique thing. I'm sure this these 2 days meetings will be beneficiary for all the people who came here, but obviously the institution is going to be big beneficiary of this. And as I was telling you know, Ritesh also, I said, well, all of this is fine, but we need to make sure that we want to see the progress of this.
Yeah.
And we should get a regular information, a regular report. And when you see that happening, you make progress, the board of governors will be even more excited next time to come
More
in.
involved. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Sophie. Thank you for being with us for the IRE Talks podcast today. And thank you for the opportunity to host you this evening.
No, thank you very much. I'm humbled, and thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hope with this, our learners and our viewers had a very engaging session today. So I'll hope to meet you all very soon again with our next IRE Talks podcast powered by GIBS Business School. So please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel @GIBS Business School, @GIBS IRE Talks podcast. Please do follow us on all our social media handles so that you are updated with all the news and all the updates regularly. This is your host, Dr. Pallavi Vyas, signing off for today so that we can meet very soon in another channel in the GIBS IRE Talks podcast, powered by GIBS Business School, where innovation meets inspiration.